This is Sanus's theory of much. Experimental results of testing with my dark matter motor prototype conclusively prove that its energy on input is multiplied by its output energy and work. My exemplary rotary and piston embodiments of this over-unity technology can be built and operated by anyone for the purposes of scientific research with my permission. The over-unity test results of the dark matter motor test stand prove that the multiplied output energy does not come from the neodymium iron boron magnet metal at all, but rather from disturbances in the fields permeating and surrounding the metal. As I've elsewhere described, these fields are steady assemblies in what can be thought of as an incredibly tiny unit of scalar particles that spit repulsive energy that powers everything in the universe, starting with the particles that propel each elementary barycentric particle. That is, the 3 quarks that power every piston, that power every proton and every neutron, etc. Since electrostatic accretion, magnetic attractive and repulsive, electromagnetic and gravitational forces exist throughout the universe, one is inexorably led to the following logical conclusions. The universe exists beyond and is greater than any arbitrarily large value. In that sense, it is infinite. The universe is alpha and omega. It extends from everlasting to everlasting. The universe is bounded by an electromagnetic minuscule layer. It is a bubble in the void. Less than 1/1000th of a billionth at most of the total matter and energy of the universe exists as something as large and detectable as a quark or lepton. 2 of the 4 known forces, gravity and electromagnetism, operate throughout this universe. In the center of the universe is a small bubble, approximately 13.7 billion years old. The, quote, universal bubble, close quote, within the universe. The universal bubble within the universe also contains the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. The latest Big Bang brought them into existence again. All but 1/1000th of a billionth at most of the universe's matter and energy is uniformly but dynamically distributed throughout the universe. Weakly interacting paired particles/waves make up all but less than 1/1000th of a billionth of the total matter and energy of the universe, including the universal bubble. The universal bubble is the product of tiny anomalies in the universe brought about by torque, the conservation of angular momentum, electromagnetism, and gravity, sparked by compression and friction. The universe may be considered as a bubble filled with whip wave quantum soup. The universal bubble may be considered as an expanding bubble within the universe, expanding until it nears the minuscule layer of the universe, where it will be turned back again toward a big crunch and another big bang ad infinitum. Leptons and quarks, over 4 billion times a second, having picked up energy from cutting the lines of force of paired dark matter particle/waves that I call scalar particles that exist in a universal scaffold, power the universal bubble. In 1982, research results obtained by testing of our first dark matter motor prototype inexorably and immediately led me to conclude that the universal bubble must be expanding with slowly but ever-increasing speed. This conclusion was confirmed in 1998 by Nobel Prize-winning scientists. The expansion of the universal bubble will continue to accelerate until it nears the electromagnetic minuscule layer of the universe. As the universal bubble approaches the universe's minuscule layer, it will be turned back toward its next big crunch. The cosmological constant of Einstein's awesome imaginative genius may be said to exist in the universe as intrinsic properties of the scalar particles. Hyperinflation, in light of an analysis of my dark matter motor prototype test results, has become a superfluous theory. The speed of light in the quantum soup thus really is the universe's speed limit. The universal bubble might be thought of as flecks of spice in a quantum soup of the universe. The universe quantum soup provides an answer to action at a distance, and is the ether, the all-pervading medium of the propagation of all particles and waves, even as quarks and leptons are completely permeable to these scalar particle whip waves. Michelson-Morley did not destroy this whip wave ether. Einstein's special theory of relativity and a photoelectric effect did not destroy my scalar particle or whip wave ether. At the University of Leiden in 1920, Einstein himself said, "We may say that according to the general theory of relativity, space is endowed with physical qualities in this sense. Therefore, there exists an ether." Scientists should look again at Einstein's statement, quote, "If Michelson-Morley is wrong, then relativity is wrong," close quote. Einstein did miss the ether comprised of what he called unknown particles. We also, theory has called them whip wave ether, and I call them the scalar soup universe. And that forces modifications to the photoelectric effect, special and general theory of relativity assumptions, and conclusions. When the universal bubble of our last Big Bang was 1 year old, the separations between galaxies were not increasing at 300 times the speed of light. The speed of light is still the universal speed limit. Space can expand faster than the speed of light, according to general relativity, only if one believes that, quote, empty, close quote, space does not represent matter or energy. However, empty space is not empty. It is completely filled with scalar particles that are locked in a structure. They have nose to tail, nose to tail, nose to tail, nose to tail. They spin axially, but not orbitally. They're locked in an axial orbit, but they cannot perform an orbit that goes around anything else. They are the ultimate tiny particle in our universe. They supply energy to every other particle. These particles have not been found empirically, but they're found theoretically, and my theories are dependent upon them. Space can expand faster than the speed of light. Why? Because, in fact, this scalar particle that spits out electric energy at least 4 billion times a second, it fuels every other particle in the universe. That's why we have an expanding universe that continues to increase its expansion speed until it reaches the minuscule bubble at its outer limits. Space and time did not come into existence with the last Big Bang at time zero. Beyond the spherical universe, space and time do exist. Matter and energy are eternal. They were not created quite literally from the nothingness of curved space-time. That scientific truth is nonsense. Einstein understood that gravity was tugging at every bit of matter, so the, quote, universal bubble, close quote, had to collapse into a big crunch under its own weight. So Einstein made up the cosmological constant, a lambda notation that expressed that empty space is really not empty at all. It has a latent energy. Well, that latent energy has never been explained until my fixed in space scalar particle matrix. Friedman's mathematics and Hubble's astronomical observations toppled the lambda sign in general relativity. My scalar particle theory is a tool to find the truth of cosmology. Christian Huygens, quote, unspecified medium of the transmission of light, like sound is a vibration in the air, close quote, is the dark matter / energy that is equally distributed throughout the universe as paired particles in an endless framework until it reaches a minuscule layer of a round universe. Newton's 3 laws of motion must now give way to dark matter / energy scalar particle theory mandated modification. Newton's 3 laws of motion merely give a name to what is unexplained. My scalar particle laws give that a logical explanation, and that is not given by Newton's 3 laws of motion. When Einstein observed, quote, for if no particular state of motion can be ascribed to the ether, there does not seem to be any ground for introducing it as an entity of a specific sort, close quote. There was scant evidence of my scalar particle quantum soup universe. When that towering genius, H.A. Lorentz, opined that, quote, the seat of the electromagnetic force is the empty space, close quote, he hadn't seen dark matter motor test results that prove that empty space is actually scalar particle quantum soup. Dark matter motor test results likewise force the necessary modifications to the applicable work of Faraday, Maxwell, Hertz, Huygens, Fresnel, Planck, among others. Fresnel's ether hypothesis was correct as far as it went. The H.A. Lorentz electrodynamic theory failed, moreover, to give any explanation concerning the tremendous forces which hold the electric charges to the individual particles. Quotation by Albert Einstein. My scalar particle theory does explain it completely. As Einstein once wrote, quote, now a question arises. Since the electromagnetic field exists even in a vacuum, should one conceive of the field as a state of a, quote, carrier, close quote, or should it be rather and be endowed with an independent existence not reducible to anything else? In other words, is there an ether that carries the field? Close quote. The answer to Einstein's question is yes. The scalar particle universe is that answer. Meanwhile, particle theorists have realized that the cosmological constant can be interpreted as a measure of the energy density of the vacuum, close quote. It is a measure of the, quote, conservable, close quote, energy of the scalar particle vacuum. Quote, if vacuum energy is usually thought to be easier to imagine as an unknown mechanism which would set it precisely to zero than one which would suppress it by just the right amount to yield an observationally accessible cosmological constant, close quote. Even the conception of Born and Heisenberg that the physical world could be regarded either in terms of waves or particles is rendered susceptible to reanalysis by the prototype dark matter motor test results, which mandate the truth of my scalar particle scaffolding universe. Planck's law of radiation must now be incorporated as part of my scalar particle theory. Planck's universal constant, N, and whip wave theory require science to find a new conceptual basis for all of physics, according to Einstein. Well, my work, my experiments do prove that. And that is the scalar particle energy. Neither time nor space began at the moment of the last Big Bang. Dark energy / matter does not become diluted anywhere in the universe because it's on a scalar particle scaffold. But regular matter does become diluted as it spreads across the universal bubble. My experiments result in confirmation of the statement, quote, quantum mechanics adds another contribution from the zero-point energies associated with vacuum fluctuations, close quote. The fact discovered by Faraday in 1831 that an electric current can be, quote, induced, close quote, to flow in a coil of copper wire when a magnet is brought close to it can now be explained. It is a disturbance in the scalar matter fields of dark matter energy. Dark matter / energy, the scalar particles, also explains why many protons carrying a positive charge can exist close to each other in a stable nucleus of an atom. Ampere's circuital law and Gauss's law both must now be modified to account for this scalar particle energy. The same is true for Coulomb's law. Electric and magnetic forces are part of a simple physical phenomenon, as special relativity postulates. Both are powered by dark matter energy of the scalar scaffold universe. The Biot-Savart law must also be modified to include this scalar particle universe. The Lorentz transformation of a spherically symmetrical proper electric field E of a moving electric charge from the charge's reference frame to the reference frame of a non-moving observer results in the following term, which can be defined or labeled as a magnetic field, must now incorporate my scalar particle universe theory. Electron degeneration pressures will force our sun's collapse to a diameter of approximately that of planet Earth. Scalar particle dark energy will keep it from collapsing further. Neutron stars, crushed by gravity down to 10 miles in diameter, will be so dense that 1 teaspoonful of it would weigh about 1 billion tons. Scalar particle energy will keep it from collapsing further. Signed, David Richard Sanis, dairy farmer. With inspiration, assistance, and advice beyond measure from Sun Sanis, Sky Sanis, Earl Smith, Juan Moran, Iskander A.R. Abdullah, Malik Fuller, Marcus Fuller, Patricio David, and William Taj Williams, as well as my son and photographer who sits across from me here in the park. He knows who he is.